Hello everyone and welcome, this is Comodin. Today I'm going to be giving you my top 10 Transformers video games that have been released up to 2021. Now, I did this video about 5 years ago, but like everything else on this channel 5 years ago, it was awful. So I'm going to do a little bit of a remaster of that video and kind of reshuffle the order of some of the games, because my opinion has changed over time. If you're new to this channel and your personal favourite Transformers game is on this list, it's more than likely I've done a playthrough of that game on this channel. Do check out my Comodin Gaming Collection playlist, that's on the main page of this channel. Just throw a bit of comedy in your way, I often do with my friends, but also other Transformers YouTubers as well, so check it out if you want. So without further ado, let's just dive straight into number 10. First up, we have the latest Transformers video game to be released, Transformers Battlegrounds. Yep, that's right, this is the latest Transformers video game. Boy, we've come a long way, haven't we? It's an action strategy game. The gameplay is pretty simple. You move a character to go in that direction, and you got to stop the enemies from either conquering something or you've got to defend something. And its coat is basically the style of Transformers Cyberverse. Now don't get me wrong, you get to play as the Decepticons as well, which is far more than Transformers Devastation. You only get to play as the Decepticons in the multiplayer mode, but not actual online multiplayer, just basically your buddy right next to you. Now, do you really have any friends at home to play this game with you? I don't have any friends to play this game with, except for one, which is Lewis. This guy commented saying, Transformers Battlegrounds is 10 times better than Transformers War for Cybertron.
Anyone who would say that, oh, that's actually no.
I won't go on for too long because I already did a full extended review of this game only but last year, so check that out if you want. But yeah, this game just... the story is basically a Cyberverse episode, and while the characters do maintain their original voice actors for the most part, it's just overall a lackluster experience and something that the Transformers franchise didn't really need, but hey, at least they've delved into the strategy genre. Did you know they also did DLC for this game? I bet you didn't. You're gonna pay £8 for it? I bet you ain't. At number 9 we have Transformers Rise of the Darkspark. Originally I was going to keep this at number 10, but at least this attempted to be something like the Transformers War for Cybertron and For Cybertron games, hence attempted. Now this mixes in two continuities in one and it just becomes an absolute mess. Despite being on Cybertron, the areas feel absolutely claustrophobic. The roster is lackluster on the movie side. You'd think the For Cybertron continuity would keep you enticed in this game, like, oh, at least we've got this, right? Well, it just becomes a bland story and doesn't add anything to the formula except from being kind of a prequel to For Cybertron. Even though they try and blend in the movie canonical universe into it, it just doesn't make sense story-wise. I mean, even if you go onto the movie side characters, they have a poor roster. I mean, if you couldn't tell already, the game was rushed as hell just to fit in with the Age of Extinction movie. It was also meant to mark the anniversary of the Transformers franchise, but while not the worst movie tie-in video game ever to be released, it did mark the downfall of the Transformers video games, and not even the multiplayer could save it. You couldn't even play it now if you wanted to, because with the online servers being officially shut down by Activision for all the games. Even though its variety in multiplayer was not as big as its predecessor, For Cybertron. At number 8 we have Revenge of the Fallen for the PlayStation 3, not the PS2 version, not the Nintendo DS version, not any other version that's on the console, because Revenge of the Fallen got the most different varieties of games. No, I'm talking about the PlayStation 3 version. Now what I love about this game the most was the fact that it came out in 2009 and the game looked that good. The game was a graphical improvement over the 2007 game that came out on the PS2 and then eventually PS3. But where this game kind of lacks a bit is its story. It's basically just the Autobots sitting in a room and talking about what's going to happen next. Yep, this is fun. Which is quite interesting because at least the PS2 version of Revenge of the Fallen did attempt to actually give a narrative structure. But where you have most fun in this game is actually in the sandbox, but mostly actually in multiplayer, not actually the missions themselves. Now unfortunately the multiplayer is shut down, but I liked the multiplayer when it was out, it was really good. And I feel like this game was designed for multiplayer a little bit more than the actual story, because when it comes to the story, the missions are two-dimensional, they're basically very basic, they can be either very tedious or very easy. You either have to blow up the enemy or escort someone. But this game had a lot of variety in who you could play on the Autobots and Decepticons side, even added in a lot of good DLC skins, but unfortunately they're no longer attainable. And it's like, damn, there goes all the value in this game. It's weird that we never thought about that in 2009. At number 7 we have Transformers the game, released in 2007. Now the reason why I'm going to give this an extra boost on the list is because out of all the movie tie-in video games, this actually attempted to be good. And for the most part, this actually succeeded. It was pretty good for 2007. This actually did an alright job on balancing with both Autobots and Decepticons playability, because, you know, you could never play as the Decepticons before. Now what I liked most about this game after replaying it on my playthrough was actually the story structure. Like, they actually did an alright job on presenting the story with a good sandbox with a mixed variety of characters. And if you've got this on PC, the fans for this game have added mods which make it more extremely fun. I think that's the difference with the other games before. You can actually still do an awful lot with this game despite the fact that it's not multiplayer. Like, they actually give you a lot to kind of mess around with and a lot to have fun with as well. The missions aren't too tedious, they are average in who you are playing as, either Autobots or Decepticons, and they give you an alternative ending depending on who you play as. You can have one campaign as the Autobots and the other as Decepticons. I gotta give them props for being the first game to really attempt it. And damn, I've just gotta say, the cutscenes for this game. This came out in 2007. This is some of the best cutscenes I've ever seen for that era. They literally reached the levels of the movie that they were promoting. At number 6 we're having another movie tie-in game, being Transformers Dark of the Moon, at the helm of High Moon Studios. That already proved that they could make a good Transformers game by just coming off with the success of Transformers War for Cybertron. And I think they nailed it again with Dark of the Moon. It's not the biggest Transformers game, it's not a massive sandbox, but when it comes to story structure, actually blending it in with the movie itself, explaining the origins of Shockwave and how he comes to pass in the movie, I think they did a great job within the amount of time they were given. Now unfortunately you can't play as the multiplayer, but at the time I remember the multiplayer being really good, very similar to War for Cybertron. Of course they hadn't perfected multiplayer yet, and that would come next year in 2012 with Fall of Cybertron. The gameplay is very similar to War for Cybertron, and while the areas do feel claustrophobic at times, you know, being on Earth instead of Cybertron, High Moon kind of had to play with something new there. I think the formula with High Moon still worked well with the movie characters, and at least gave the movie universe a good story to tell. Some would say a better story than actually the movie that it's tying into. To be honest, it is just a good game experience while it lasts, because I don't find any replayability in this game at all. It pretty much is a narrative game where as soon as you're done, that's pretty much it. You know, you would have been able to have continued with the multiplayer, but as we know, Activision had to go and shut the servers down. But no one played the multiplayer for this game anyway. It was actually the least active server in the entire Transformers games. At number 5 we have Transformers Prime the video game. This was released in 2012 only for the Wii. This is a brawler game and it's mostly a faithful adaptation of the Transformers show. You could actually include it in the second season, well at least that was the intent. Problem with that is the roster of the Decepticons not actually making sense. You can't actually put this in the second season. Other than that, it would have been a great episode to actually have in the show as a whole. Include it as a side story, you know, as a part of the big Transformers Prime continuity, but it doesn't make sense, so just kind of think of this as a side piece when it comes to the story. But the gameplay, being a brawler, it is a bit repetitive and the story is very short. It acts like an episode, like I said, but if the characters feel genuine like they are in this show, the characters are voiced very well by their respected actors in the Transformers Prime cartoon. I just kind of wish that this game was accessible on the console, you know, just being exclusive to the Wii. But yeah, the multiplayer is pretty much just a couch co-op. I mean, if you've got any friends at home that want to play Transformers Prime with you, I'm glad that you've got them, but I don't. I don't have any of friends that want to play Transformers Prime on the Wii. What's also pretty neat about this game is that they include a character that's not been used at all in the Transformers media, being Thunderwing. So it's good that Prime took a different direction and not just being a random, you know, Autobots versus Decepticons. We actually have him versing Thunderwing himself. And his design blends in with the Transformers designs in a whole, so he doesn't feel out of place at all. He actually blends in pretty well, and the designs actually look pretty good. The graphics aren't that bad either. Overall, a good short and sweet solid experience. At number 4 we have Transformers Devastation, developed by Platinum Games. This was released back in 2015. This is an action hack and slash. This was definitely the most G1 game you were ever going to get. It only has 5 characters though, unfortunately. I would have loved to have played as the Decepticons. That's the only part of the game that I think it really weakens. But the game very much plays out like an episode from Generation 1 because it has its charm and cast from the original cartoon. But they also throw in references from other Transformers media as well. But I really like playing this game for its charm. I'm not the biggest hack and slash person. I actually find it really tedious, especially when you try and go for the platinum. It's the reason why I've never actually platinumed this game at all. I mean, you can definitely see me struggle in my recent playthrough with Rodimus Primal. To be honest, I possibly could have done it back in 2015, but I'm feeling older now and I don't feel like I have the patience for all the tediousness and all the combos and vehicle attacks that you need to do to get the SS ranks. This game pretty much relies on dodging, so if you can master dodging, you've pretty much mastered the game. It's pretty much a game of bosses. You verse so many types of Decepticons in this game, from combiners to the main cast of the Decepticons, which have their own unique special attacks and abilities that really do challenge you as a player. Like, I don't even want to test this game on the most hardest difficulty because I just feel like I'll just burn out immediately. And while I find the upgrading system that they have very confusing, and the weapon system, while very good and varied, not all the weapons actually are useful. They're just kind of thrown in there just for the sake of it, and you pretty much need to clutter out a lot of those weapons to save room for extra stuff as well. We assumed we were going to get a sequel for this game because, well, it's not the most complete game. The areas very much feel similar at times. And it's a shame that the story arc will never actually get wrapped up, even though they did throw in a lot of stuff from other continuities with the G1 aesthetic, which kind of worked but also didn't at the same time. While I felt like a sequel could have actually been better, I'm pretty much happy with this being a standalone experience. At number 3 we have Transformers Armada. Yes, it's just called Transformers, but this is Armada's game. This came out in 2004, and I know what you might be thinking, wait, this is a smaller roster of characters than actually Transformers Devastation. Well, it's actually the game content that I actually enjoy most. Yeah, I get it, this may be driven fully on nostalgia, but I think the game is actually a lot of fun and often forgotten about. This is actually an underrated Transformers game and was the first Transformers game to really kind of open the waters to what a future Transformers game could be. You know, this was the breadcrumbs to what would become of the For Cybertron and War for Cybertron game. The presentation of the game is pretty good. It's an average story, but each cutscene is memorable because of the insane detail that they put into the cutscenes, and not only that, but the graphics are actually pretty good as well, especially running at full HD. You know, they really do stand out. They are better than even Transformers 2007, and this came out before that. Now, this is not the most advanced gameplay at all. You know, they do have some good combinations because you are using mini-cons. You have to collect them, pretty much the premise of the Armada show. And the more you collect, the more you can power up your Autobot, either the Optimus Prime, Hotshot, and Red Alert. They do have unique kind of standards, you know, in terms of speed, strength, agility. While that might be a bit of a stretch, the gameplay is actually really fun in a big open sandbox with unique distinct areas. You've got Antarctica, you've got the jungle, the deep sea, a volcano, Cybertron, which is more than what Devastation and Battlegrounds had to offer. I know this is running on full nostalgia, but I actually found a lot of replayability in this game. Even when the story is complete, you can go back and find all the rest of the minicons to get the secret ending. Overall, I just love this game. At number 2 we have Transformers War for Cybertron. This was the game that put the Transformers games officially on the map. Initially set to be a G1 backstory, it became a line continuity game in the end, connecting to the Prime television show and all that. This game overall is just aesthetically pleasing. They do a lot of good by harking back to Generation 1 and giving it a new coat and modernising it up. High Moon Studios knew what the fans wanted. Now what really gets this game going is the gameplay, completely modernised from what we've known before. You've got Cybertron and unique locations, you're following the story of either Autobots or Decepticons, and you get to play as 3 characters. Unfortunately, you know, obviously can't go on multiplayer anymore, can't go on escalation, but one thing I liked, but I didn't really use that much, was actually the co-op in the campaign itself. But when it came to multiplayer and escalation, boy, those were the days going on escalation where you had to get to wave 100. I'm pretty sure they had it beyond that as well, but me and Lewis never got that far at all. But the multiplayer would be a tons of fun as well. The customization was lacking, yet it would later be perfected in Fall of Cybertron, but at the time I had a lot of good memories from this game when I was a kid. This was the game I played all the time before and after school. They had a lot of good multiplayer modes, you know, the typical team deathmatch, conquest, capture the flag, and they had a few more as well, I'm pretty sure, but never really used that much of. Unfortunately, those memories of multiplayer are now just memories. Even though the live servers weren't as active towards the end, it's still a shame that we can't go back and play as all those different types of characters. Damn it, Activision, you broke my heart. At number 1 we have Transformers Fall of Cybertron. Originally I had War for Cybertron as first, but I think it's gotta be Fall of Cybertron because they perfected everything with War for Cybertron, both in campaign and multiplayer. The campaign is pretty two-dimensional, you know, you get to play as Autobots and Decepticons every so often, you don't get to switch like in War for Cybertron, but I think what Fall of Cybertron does more better is its narrative structure actually being a good sequel story, and it's actually really impactful when you get towards the end of the game. And it's actually a crime that we did not get the third installment. Of course, you just got to think that the Prime cartoon is the sequel because this is set in the aligned continuity where these games and the TV shows are connected. Even though continuity wise it doesn't make any sense, but let's just forget about that. But obviously what they perfected the most was the multiplayer, especially in customization. You get to customize all kinds of different characters from body parts of the roster that they have, and they had a good lineup as well, and they made escalation a bit more tight, a bit more structured better, so you're not going past wave 100, you know, you actually do know where you're going in the end. I mean, come on, this game gave us Space T-Rex, you get to play as all the Dinobots, even though they were a DLC pack. The DLC was actually exciting. I know, I can't believe I'm saying that about DLC, but I remember being really excited for the DLC. And when you got them, it felt good because you felt like you owned them. Of course, you don't anymore. But still, nonetheless, this game, I waited for it when it was released. I was on holiday at the time. I actually couldn't play it for quite a few days because I was like on holiday with my grandma. And I remember just waiting though at game. I was the first person there. And I just felt so happy that I finally got my hands on Transformers Fall of Cybertron. A lot of good memories from both the War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron days, but it was definitely Fall of Cybertron that I played the most of. I just wish I could go back to that. Damn it, High Moon Studios, you were treated dirty by Activision. You deserved better. These games deserve better. So there we have it guys, my top 10 Transformers games remastered. I've kind of jumbled up the list a little bit. Let me know what your personal favourite are in the comments section below. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I've done a full on playthrough of some of these games. So check them out if you want a bit of entertainment. I'll link them in the description below and at the end of the video. If you are new to this channel, be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell to get all updates instantly. Thank you for watching, and until the next video, goodbye.